Well, here we go back for some more God hockey. And today I'm welcoming an old friend, hockey coach with Pro Hybrid. Zach Sikich is with me today. Zach, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, Dana. Pumped to get after it here.
Yeah, for sure. So you and I, we have known each other for quite a while. But before we get to that, let's just talk a little bit about how you started out, how goaltending became a part of your life, and maybe a little bit about where it took you from there.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up on the Iron Range. That's in northern Minnesota, so pretty much an hour south of the Canadian border in Gilbert, Minnesota. And we skated outside. I remember we have pictures of me being 2, 3 years old. My mom, pulling the sled to the local rink, and she'd tie the skates. And we skated at a young age, and then I moved, and my next door neighbor was the best player as like a first grader. His name was Bookham Heitzman, and Bookham wanted a kid to shoot on. He's like, "Hey, I'm really good at hockey,
Hmm.
and I want to shoot on you in your basement."
Older,
So,
older kid.
same age, same
Oh,
age,
nice.
and we're classmates together. We walked to school every day together. We lived 6 blocks from the elementary school, so we'd walk to school, and he'd always be in my ear. He'd be like, "Zach, I want you to be a goalie, so then I can shoot on you, and I'm the best player, so you're going to become the best goalie because I'm just going to shoot on you all the time in the basement." So he'd bring me over. We'd strap the old Cooper pads, the ones that were like tan color, to my legs, and I wasn't a goalie yet, but I was taking shots in the basement, and I was the biggest kid in my kindergarten class. You have the pictures of the kindergarten class, and you're all in a row, and I was a couple
Back
inches
row
taller
for
than
sure.
everyone. I was a little heavier than everyone too, so I presented a very good target in the net as a big boy. And I wasn't an incredible skater. We can talk how things have changed in recent days where the goalies are the best skaters and they're some of the best athletes. But back in the day, I was born in 1980, so this is about 1986, 87.
Mhm.
You're still looking for the biggest guy that could just sort of take up some space. So Bookham convinced me to be a goalie, and then I started playing goalie. I think I started full time as a fourth grader, so I did like 3 years of half goalie, half player, which we can get into the benefits of that. And yeah, northern Minnesota, man. So grew up in northern Minnesota, won the state championship, which you and I were talking about offline here in 1998, my junior year. I spent from the middle of the season all the way through the state championship game on the bench. I was a junior in high school,
Mm.
and one of my best friends, Pete Samarja, who runs a goalie training business now, believe it or not, two guys that grew up in a town of 3,000 people,
Yep.
both run goalie training businesses on a national scale. But anyways, Pete was named the starter halfway through, so I sat on the bench the entire way and still ended up playing 2 years in the USHL, 4 years of college hockey and 4 years of pro hockey after sitting on the bench, half my junior season. So
Mhm.
there's plenty of ways to make it happen.
Maybe we can touch on that a little bit. Are there good lessons to be learned from not necessarily sitting out half a season, but allowing some space for yourself to still be on a team and still feel like you're contributing, even though you're not the number one or you're not the starter, even at those ages?
Yeah, it's incredibly important, Dana. That even though and I say half the season in Minnesota, the high school season is really short in
Hmm.
terms of number of games. There's 25 regular season games and up to like maybe 5 to 6 playoff games to get to the state tournament. So it's not a lot of hockey, but I was practicing every single day.
Yeah.
Pete and I were still best friends. We're competing with each other. And it wasn't like halfway through the season, coach was like, "You're done, Zach." He's like, we were still battling, but Pete was just the better goalie.
Yeah.
And I supported him. And what it gave me at a really young age was empathy and to see what it's like on the other side of the coin. And I think that's so incredibly important because if you're starting all the games or if you're the number one guy and don't have much competition, and then all of a sudden you get to junior or you get to college or maybe an upper level midget hockey, and you're not playing all the minutes, and all of a sudden you're looking for excuses and you have no perspective on what that's like. If you have a little bit of perspective, you have some empathy, so then you know what it's like to be a good backup or a good partner that's not playing
Hmm.
as much. But then you also have that burning desire. I wasn't okay with it. I wasn't just like,
Right.
that's where the cookie crumbles. Um, but I had a burning desire to get in the net. And you know what that did? It made me and Pete better.
Right. Right. Of course. Now, that being said, you would probably agree it's probably not great from a coach's standpoint or from a player's standpoint to have one kid who just never plays either. I mean,
Right.
the Minnesota, you're right. The Minnesota system is a little bit different because of how the seasons are structured, and I know the spring hockey and all of that comes into it too. So it's a little bit different, but yeah, to think of for the much younger kids, it's not really ideal.
No, not at all. So now, I coach youth hockey right now, and
Mhm.
my son's a 2010, and in Minnesota,
Okay.
that's the seventh grader,
Yep.
and so he's a second year Pee Wee. It's a little different in other areas of the country
Hmm.
and in Canada, but he's a seventh grader. My daughter's a fifth grader, and we have two goalies on each of their teams. They're both defensemen, puck moving defensemen. But with the goaltenders, one of the questions we get, and maybe some of the listeners here could relate to this, is it's like, when should we carry one goalie on a team? When should we carry two goalies on a team?
Hmm.
Should we always be pushing girls and guys up to the next level if they're spots, or should there be a solo goalie? In my experience, if you can have peer relationships, you want, like a 1A, 1B, or two goalies that are relatively equal, it's a
Hmm.
no-brainer to have two of them, right?
40-40-20 type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And what we do is we say, hey, if we say it's a 5 game weekend, we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna Sebi, you're getting the first game. Danny, you're getting the second game. We're gonna rotate through. If both of you guys are playing well, we're gonna keep rotating through, and then the whoever's playing best is gonna get the championship game, and that's a little carrot to dangle for the end.
Right.
But I also have a pretty quick, yank. I was a goalie, and if I can just tell if a guy's off
Hmm.
and he's not on his game, there's that old school mentality, let me battle through it, let me battle through it. But then there's also
Sure.
a little bit of a different mentality where it says, hey, let's jolt the team. Let's give a little snap to the
Yep.
team. We're gonna switch goalies. We're just gonna hit the reset button. I bring the goalie over to the bench and say, hey man, we're giving you absolutely no run support here. And you're off your game. I've
Yeah.
been there before. I know what it's like. It's not fun. You know what? It's Danny's turn to jump in the net, and then we're gonna work on these things. And you can't make it this like um faux pas, or you can't make it this like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's not
can't
a
pull
sacred cow.
cover. Yeah, think about the players. Like you have a first unit, second unit, PP, PK, you have a first line, second line, third line. And if a guy's losing draws, you're gonna put a different center out there, and it's
Yeah.
not personal. It's just like, hey, dude, we want to win draws. Now you have an assistant coach come over, maybe work on some technique, draw some
Yeah.
stuff on the board, and say, hey, you're getting right back in the
Hmm.
fight next run.
Put something else in his head so he's
Yeah,
he's ready to get back out there. Yeah, that all of that. I guess it's much more noticeable though when it is a goalie. I
right.
think I mean I coach my son's team. It's the house league level. We only have one goalie, so there's and it's all even ice time anyway. But I can imagine I would probably have a shorter hook than you because
Mhm.
I remember what it was like. But obviously it's different styles. But I know you from years past when I was coaching a little more competitively, it would be something that yeah you get a feel for it. You
Right.
being a goalie and all of that thing too. Like you can tell something's not quite up. Let's get him out of there now. Let's get everything
Yeah.
reset. Things. So you made your way through the high school and then so you played in the USHL?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Played in the
Early
USHL.
early days USHL must have been.
Yeah, and that was so it was 99, 2000, 2000, 2001. So back in the day, and that was right where the league was going from, the wild, wild west. Don't send your kids there. It's a complete gong show type thing,
Yeah.
to very professional organizations. I was incredibly fortunate to play in Sioux Falls for the Stampede, and just an absolute A+ association because it was the first year the team existed. So
Right.
we go to Sioux Falls, which is, there was a minor league basketball team playing, but there's really no other big time sports at the time, and it was just a first class operation. From Bob Motzko was the head coach of the team, and just the hockey operations, the business side, the billets, everything was awesome. So
Hmm.
again, crazy story about high school before I got to Sioux Falls. My senior year, all right. So my junior year, Pete won the starting job. My best buddy was my goalie partner. Then he went on to play for the Twin City Vulcans, and then on to the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers as a goalie. Now my senior year, a goalie that I've been rotating with since youth hockey, his name's Matt Yuhan, and we're still friends now. And he was actually our first CPA of our business when we started growing it back in the day. So Mate and I still talk, but Matt and I rotated all year long, back and forth, back and forth. And to the first section game, we're the number one seed in the state the whole time, all right? Because we won the tournament the year before.
Yeah.
Now, in sections, which is the first layer of this playoff series, the 8th team and the 9th team, the two worst teams in the whole section, play off against each other in a play-in game. And then the winner sort of gets to be the sacrificial lamb to the number one
Right.
seed.
Yeah.
We were the number one seed. My little cousin, who was a freshman, was on the Duluth Central team, and I'm on the bench because we're just rotating games. Matt gets a start. We end up going to overtime, and we lose 7-6 in my final game of my high school career, and I'm on the bench again.
Yeah.
On the bench.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, you think about it now, we're in such a instant gratification world where we want, instant gratification. We don't want to wait. We want everything to be relatively easy.
Yep.
And a lot of the lessons that we learn that are going to benefit us later in life don't feel like they're much benefit at the time that we're going through
Sure.
it. So I'm sitting on the bench and I'm thinking in my mind, like, is my hockey career done? I had
Sure.
dreams of playing junior, college, pro hockey, and ended up getting a call from Tony Gasparini, who was assistant coach in Sioux Falls at the time. He went on to be an NHL scout for the Kings with a Stanley Cup. Now he's the VP of hockey operations in Sioux Falls. I said, "Hey, Sikich, do you want to come to Sioux Falls to be our third string goalie?" Okay, third string guy. And my other option was go to the Frontier League out in Butte, Montana. And I was like, well, I think Sioux Falls is going to be a little better situation. So I battled through being the third guy. They brought in another guy. He got a puck in the face during warmups. Helmet was up during warmups during the Buck Bowl. He's like maybe looking in the stands at the pretty girls in the stands or something. And unfortunately, his name's Terry Dunbar. We served tables at Olive Garden together. He gets a puck off the crossbar, off his face. Unfortunately, he was out. They brought in another guy, rang up about $1,000 long distance bill at his billets back before cell phones existed, and blew out his MCL his first start. So
Oh
now all of a
no.
sudden I'm the second guy, and I play about 14 games my first year in the Sioux Falls after sort of being the third guy for a while. And then I made like 56 saves on 58 shots and won 3-2 in a shootout in Sioux City. So Sioux City's this little tiny rink, and it was the last game of the year, and we'd already solidified our playoff spot. Coach Motz was like, "Sikich, it's your start tonight. This game doesn't mean anything.
We're backing into the playoffs."
We're back in the playoffs." So anyways, but he did come up after this game and said, "Hey, you know what? It's Bowie's net in the playoffs, but you're going to be a starter the next year." So I came back, was a starting goalie my second year in Sioux Falls. And then I had some opportunities to play afterwards. So I was being recruited by the West Point Military Academy, Air Force Military Academy, and then Dartmouth and Minnesota State. So I'd sort of four options, and Dartmouth and Minnesota State sort of wore off a little bit after the new year. And then it was between West Point and Air Force. And I decided the Air Force Academy was the spot I was going to go to start my college career. Freshman year at the Air Force Academy, 9/11 happened. And I'm in Russian class, in the morning, and all of a sudden we're hearing like, the TV, the news goes on. We're seeing the planes crashing into the buildings, and we're at a military academy, and so it was nuts. The place went on lockdown for a couple weeks. But the college hockey season still went on, and we were part of the CHA. I'm not sure what league they're part of now, but it was a CHA, like Fairbanks, Alabama, Huntsville, Bemidji State. I can't recall some of the other schools, but ended up being the CHA Rookie Goalie of the Year, named to the All-Rookie team. Played about 60% of the games. Had a real great experience out there, but due to the 9/11, they took away the ability to have this exceptional status after you graduate. So you couldn't play pro sports at the time. afterwards. And I was pretty stubborn, and just saying like, hey, I want to play pro hockey, and I can't do it. So then there was no transfer portal to enter, which is a little different now. I went through survival training in the spring after my freshman year was done, and I was looking to transfer to Minnesota State, which is Mankato State right now.
Mhm.
Uh, but going D1 to D1, you have to sit out a year.
Right.
So I was already a 21-year-old freshman because I played 2 years of junior, and I wasn't excited about being a 26-year-old senior, which there was been no issue with it, but I was like, oh, let me get on with
I
the
get
show.
it.
Yeah, so I transferred to St. Thomas University,
Yeah.
which is now D1, but it was D3 at the time. Rotated my first year there, and that's in Minnesota, and then started every single game my junior and senior year there. And that's when we met,
And
right?
that's
That's when
when you
we
and
met.
I met. Yeah, with
Yeah.
a phone call, guy looking for gear, Bauer
Yep.
Vapors, I believe.
Oh my God, the glove and blocker, those vapor blockers and glove were terrible, man.
Yeah.
But you actually we switched and we went with the Cole 585 pads.
Okay, yeah.
Cole 585 pads with a Bauer vapor glove and blocker.
Yeah, that was good times, right? Back when we were young men,
Oh, you know it, man. And it's
before
funny because we
everything
never
got
saw each
complicated.
other because there was really like internet existed,
Yes,
but you never saw each other. Like you just
right.
talked to each other. Hey, can you get these pads in? And then yeah, we did that, and then I played overseas. Well, I mean, I played for 13 teams in one pro hockey season. I don't know if you looked up my
Whoa.
hockey DB.
I was going to. I usually do, like, I peruse through it, so that's a lot of teams.
In and of itself, each of these stories is probably an hour-long conversation, but
Yeah.
long story short, I played for a ton of teams my first year, played for a handful of teams my second year, and then played in China it's a short season, came home around New Year's,
What
and then
year what year would that have been in
a
China?
fall of '07,
Oh seven,
and then
oh eight.
January '08.
Okay.
So when we're over there, I'm like, all right, this minor league pro hockey gig is wearing on me a bit.
Yeah.
I think the NHL is probably not going to happen at this point. I'm already like 27, 28 years old. So I was like, when I was in Quebec, I watched these guys train goalies. And I'm watching these guys. I'm like, there's like a systematic approach here. It seems like it's very calculated, and there's a flow, there's a progression. And I was already started my pro hybrid goalie training business in '04 when I was at St. Thomas University. So I was already training goalies on the side, but I
Hmm.
never really studied it. So in Quebec, I started studying it. And then by the time I'm in China, I have a lot of time on my hands. So I wrote the script and the things, the system, pretty much this pro hybrid goaltending system while I was in China. And then I used the money I made, which was really good money at the time. The most I ever made in minor leagues was like $500 a week. But in China, I was making about like 2,500 a week, which is really, really good money. In 5 times what I was making.
Sure.
So I used that money and invested in a producer and a camera crew and videographer and all this stuff, and came up with the Pro Hybrid Goaltending Series and put it on a professionally produced DVD and launched it in March of 2008,
Yeah.
which is nuts, dude. At the Minnesota high school hockey tournament at the Let's Play Hockey Expo, this huge expo where everyone comes. And that was really the jump off point of my goalie training business.
Yeah. I do remember those well. I did carry them. I did carry
Yeah.
them, and we tried to establish a little bit of a foothold for you here in the Toronto area. I do remember those. And what your what your idea brought was, like you said, a professional camera crew. The audio was very good. It wasn't an echo from a guy 50 feet away on the ice.
Right.
And everything about the whole system and everything was not just boring formulaic stuff. It was really built on a solid foundation, and people could get something unique, I think, or as unique as it can be out of it. And it was extremely well done. And yeah, it was there ended up being a volume 2 and a volume 3, which we also carried and sold too. So, and those were great. And now you have those I mean, obviously not a lot of people are buying DVDs
Oh,
anymore now
no,
that we've,
no.
so you sort of did get in sort of near the end, but it was great that you did do it, and you make those available now online.
Yeah, yeah. So the DVDs were incredible. It was right in the beginning. They started YouTube, and you were instrumental with the Goalie Store bulletin board, and you were very vocal on that. And like anything, there was a lot of detractors. And with the system, is there's a why behind it. It really gives a why
Hmm.
behind the how and the what. Like you start with why, like Simon Sinek says, start with why, get that attachment, and then you really break down the how in the process, and it's a very simple thing. So no matter if you're an NHL goalie or you're a little Mike goalie getting started, the three elements of position are squareness, angle, and depth. Square, angle, depth. We use the acronym SAD. It's SAD for shooters when a goalie's in position. Like little things like that.
Sure.
And it was fun. But in 2008, so 09 and 10, my son Henrik was born in 2010.
Named
And
after.
well, loosely named after Henrik Lundqvist, but like I thought it was just a cool name, and I love
Sure.
Henrik Lundqvist, so it wasn't named after him, but loosely named
Went
after him.
well.
Yeah, yeah, it went well, exactly. So Henrik was born in 2010, and at this time, these DVDs we sold several thousands of copies, like upwards of 50,000 copies of these DVDs. Like it's crazy between '08 and like 2015, 2016, when like the last DVD was sold. Just tons of copies. And most of the time, marketing is an expense. So if you're marketing, if you own a business, generally you spend 25 to 35% of your revenue on marketing to get more
Yep.
business. We found a way for our number one marketing tool to be also one of our biggest revenue streams. So the
Yeah.
people that buy the DVDs, and then guys in Vancouver or guys in Chicago or guys in Alaska, guys in Seattle, guys in New York. We went overseas and trained goalies for 1 week camps from 2011 to 2019 when COVID happened. I was traveling overseas. Guys would come from overseas to train with me. And I was traveling all over the world and felt like I was on, top of the hockey world, had an opportunity to interview with an NHL team, to be an NHL coach, NHL goalie coach, AHL goalie coach. I talked to some of my buddies that were in that position, and my personality, I took the entrepreneurial route. I took the business route because I realized that I was traveling all over and I was missing out on like the first 3 years of Henrik's life. And then our daughter Ilya, was born in 2013, and I was still running and gunning all over the place. And yeah, I felt cool, putting on these big goalie clinics. But in order to scale that business and create the lifestyle that I desired for my family and I knew something had to change.
Hmm.
So instead of like going all in on goalie training,
Yeah.
um, and we didn't ixnay the goalie training, but it was still just one of our businesses.
Yeah.
And it was about 25-30%. So instead of 100%, 25-30%. Got into team coaching and really got into coaching with the '98 Minnesota Blades. So that was the first team I ever coached. These guys just got back from the Brick tournament, and two NHLers, Randy Scarda and Brian Bellows, were the head coaches of this team. And they're two NHLers, big personalities. They almost killed each other on the bench up at the Brick because they were so passionate, and they're buddies, but they, disagreed. So the Blades interviewed me, they hired me. And out of that one birth year team, I coached them for 4 years. We had the following guys become NHL draft picks: Casey Middlestat,
Yeah.
first rounder; Kiefer Bellows, first rounder;
Hmm.
Riley Tufte, first rounder. All right. Then you got guys like Joey Anderson, who's a high draft
Okay.
pick in the NHL right now. Matt Hellickson played at Notre Dame. Garrett Waite played at the University of Minnesota. Matt Denman, University of Minnesota. Um, Matty Hellickson he plays in Toronto in your market, the AHL. But we had 12 Division I college scholarships and 6 NHL draft picks off of one birth
One
year.
team. Wow.
So
That's
I
pretty
saw that. I
solid.
was like, yeah, yeah. So I saw like I like coaching players, and I could still use these like systems, and I could still use this idea and I could impact more people. So then we acquired a AAA hockey program called the Iceman Ice Cougars, built that up to about 16 teams. Built that up to about 16 teams. I sold that in 2016, and helped those guys out for a couple of years. Then I started Pro Hybrid AAA hockey, which is one of our main businesses right now in 2018, because
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to start it with the 2010s when they were little guys, and then we added a year now. So now, fast forward, we run 2016s as our youngest group, up to 2010s, which is our oldest group. There's 3 teams at each birth level, and that's like sort of one of our main businesses right now is at AAA, Pro Hybrid AAA. And then we have the Pro Hybrid goaltending, and then about 3 years into the AAA business, I was looking at my balance sheet of my business. There's this line item, $64,000. Any guess what it was of an expense? What do you think it was? If you're running a AAA hockey program, what do you spend the most money on?
I was gonna say goalie coaching.
It should be. It should be goalie coaching. It's it's
Gatorade.
it's tournaments.
Okay. Yes.
Think about it. Every
Yeah.
tournament you get in, 1,500, 1,600,
Wow.
2,500,
Yeah.
3,200. And there's a lot of great tournaments out there, but then there's
Hmm.
a lot of very average or below average tournaments.
Yeah.
And what makes the tournament great? The other teams that are in it, the refs, the locations, maybe the bells and whistles like announcing or live scoring, all this type of stuff. So we took all these things and rather just complain about it, like, oh, these tournaments suck, I don't want to play in them. We found a sponsor, Sniper's Edge Hockey, which is like a hockey stick handling and at-home device company. So they have stick handling products, they have shooting tarps, they have balls. And we went to them and said, hey, people don't want to play Pro Hybrid in a tournament and pay Pro Hybrid in a tournament. So you can't call it the Pro Hybrid tournament. So I want to call it, the Sniper's Edge Tournament Series. And you get great advertising for your target market. And here's what we're going to do. So we built that up now to have 5 tournaments. Smallest tournaments, about 80 games. And the biggest tournaments, about 215 games.
Wow.
That's a lot, man, in a weekend. We hire Tony Lancette, who is the director of reffing for our tournament series. He's ref the state high school hockey championship final game for like 4 years in a row. He's a linesman there. He's the best ref in the state of Minnesota. We use Game Sheets, which is a live scoring app, which is fantastic. Music, all this stuff. We get great teams and we get great competition. And now instead of having the $60,000 expense, we have a huge source of revenue, and we get to control one of the biggest variables of AAA hockey is tournaments. We also
Yeah.
do the good tournaments. We go to Austin, we go to Nashville, we've gone to Winnipeg, Chicago, other tournaments, but each of our teams play in 3 of our own tournaments. So it's so to answer your question there, goaltending is just a small piece of it.
Yeah.
And it's really not scalable. I didn't feel like it was scalable from a DVD and video standpoint,
Yep.
but I could just impact a lot more people and
Yeah.
create a better lifestyle for my family, getting
Yeah. Of
in, not throwing away goalie training.
course.
I still love it. I still do it a lot. We have camps, we have all kinds of great programs, but AAA and tournaments was the way to
Hmm.
go.
Yeah. Well, there are many fewer goalies out there than there are
Right.
every other position, and I mean, look in the Toronto area, to steal a line from a former sports radio guy, you can't swing a dead cat in Toronto without hitting a goalie coach somewhere. Like there's a lot of competition, like there are guys
Right.
all over the place and guys I talk to, and there's lots of good ones. There's lots
Yeah.
of good
Oh, for
ones.
sure.
And so you want to diversify as much as you can. You seem to have always, I think, had an acumen for the ability to to see what the business is for the business, to be able to look at it and have an honest look and say, we can grow this or we can make changes here. And that's, part of the reason for your success, I think, with everything along the way, whether it be just strictly when you were doing the goal to when you're running your own teams, now you're running your own tournaments. And then you just have to manage it at scale. And then, it works. And I really do want to take a moment to to shout out Jessica here, to Mrs. Sikich, because
Oh, nice.
I mean, she must have saw something in you to stick around through all of that. I think she's the real hero of the story here.
She's also really is the glue behind the pro hybrid culture, because a lot of these moms and dads that live in our community go work out with her. She is able to like be in the stands during games and tournaments and connecting people. So we're like, hey, babe, this is like a new player. She goes and talks to him, connects them with the group. So
Yeah.
plays an integral role. And it's just a lot of fun because
And you
she
guys
is.
seem like a great match from everything I
Oh,
see. So,
it's
but
it's
yeah.
fun. Yeah. Yeah, we're very opposite in our personalities, but we complement each other. We're the yin and yang for
Yeah, I
sure.
think that's the way it usually works the best. So from your experience with the coaching and all those other things, and maybe even in particular for goalies, because we talk a lot of goalie stuff here. What are one or even a couple of things that parents need to, or that you would want to help parents understand with their goalies as they grow, and maybe just the, whether it's the playing time, or we talked about before, not committing to goalie early, or
Mhm.
those types of things.
Yeah, so the number one piece of advice I have is be a critical thinker. You have to take each situation, whether it's your goalie or your neighbor's goalie, or if you're coaching a team or you're a goalie coach, take it as an individual. Look at the other examples, what works, what doesn't work. But we can't just say, well, we've always had two goalies on a team, so we're just going to keep having two goalies on a team. Or goalies have never been able to be full time until they're in squirts. So we're always going to do that. You got to take a look at why. Why do we have this situation in place? So, for instance, being a full time goalie at a young age, if you are already a great skater, I told my son, Henrik, when he wanted to be a goalie to start, I said,
Hmm.
hey, put these pads on. And if you can beat half the team in skating drills with your pads on, you can be goalie as much as you want. So then you dangle the carrot and you say, if you can do this, then you earn that.
Hmm.
So, and with youth hockey associations and coaches, make kids earn the goalie gear versus making it being like a scarlet letter. Everyone has to play goalie at least
Yes.
once. They're like, oh no, I don't want to be goalie. But it,
The goalie stick of Damocles
oh right,
hanging
yeah,
over your head for that one turn you get a year.
right. So you make it the opposite. Be like, listen, guys, who's gonna earn the goalie gear first? How do you earn the goalie gear? Well, you have to be able to do the skating drill. You figure out what like the average time of your team is to say do a Herbie or just down and back or a lap or something silly,
Yep.
like 10 burpees.
Just
And you're like,
gamify it.
yeah, yeah, gamified, exactly. Whoever can do this drill the fastest gets to be the goalie first. And now you have your best athlete in goal. And he or she's gonna probably like it. Because you put it in a lens, or you put it on a pedestal rather than putting it in the crapper. So that's number one. And in order to be a full-time goalie at a young age, because now there is benefit to it. Like if you don't allow full-time goalies until squirts, all of a sudden you get to squirt and you don't have any goalies. You're like, well, we have a shortage of goalies in this association.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't allow anyone to be a full-time goalie until this
That's
year.
right.
So who do you know? So what you want is you want kids that have a passion at being goalie, but they also have to be great skaters. You can't have a guy or girl that's just sort of a blob in the net. That was me. I was a blob in the net to start, but then I had. So it's funny. My wife is a tremendous athlete. Like if you look at her run, if you look at her lift weights, if you look at her do those types of activities,
Yeah.
she looks like a D1 professional athlete. Beautiful technique, very cerebral. She understands the kinesiology behind everything. The worst hand-eye coordination of any human being I've ever met, though.
Okay.
We've never played catch. I should have played catch with her at least a couple times before we got married. I'm the exact opposite. I have like off the charts hand-eye coordination, but I can't do a somersault.
Right. Yeah.
So so at a young age, it's good to have goalies that are athletic, but it's really important to have good hand-eye coordination. So work with your young goalies on catching racket balls and make sure that you can squeeze your glove like this. There's nothing worse than a young goalie that just the puck, you can't catch pucks.
Yes.
You gotta get a glove that's broken in that you can squeeze real simply and that. So those are some tips for the young goalies and the young goalie families out there.
Hmm. And just and dealing with coaches when it comes to things like playing time and who starts which game and who gets the state final.
Mhm.
I mean, the approach obviously is I would say is no going in what the share is going to be, but how do we handle things like that as they come up throughout the season?
Yeah, with it's a lot on the coaches. Now, I was a goalie guy. I'm a goalie guy. I was a goalie and I'm a head coach. Early on, when I was a head coach, I'd forget about the goalies. Like, and I'm a goalie guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So imagine what it's like not being a goalie guy and being a head coach of a team. So delegation is absolutely huge. So assign or find out someone that's passionate about goaltending, whether it's like the high school kid that wants to volunteer or whether it's a dad that can help out, but you have to delegate someone to goaltending and you got to have some clear communication. So like what I like to tell our goalies is you earn a spot on the team, right? We picked you. We didn't have to pick you. You
Yeah.
earned a spot on the team. Number one. All right. Here's the way the association, like Winter Association hockey runs. It's 50-50 playing time over the course of the season. What that might mean is we might go every other.
Hmm.
Okay. We might go 50-50, half the game and the other half of the game. I want to really talk about this briefly because
Yeah.
it's a sticking point. It's a stigma for a lot of people. So if a lot of guys are like, well, I don't want to come off the bench or it's tough to come off the bench. Yes, it is, but it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to come off the bench and be effective, and it's a mindset. So you might be playing hockey and you say you get to the junior or you get to a high level Bantam hockey and you've never come off the bench and you're a backup goalie. The other guy gets hurt. And now here's your time to shine, but you've never done it, or you're nervous about it, or you think there's a stigma about it, and you lose your opportunity. But on the other side, you practice coming in off the bench, you rotate 50-50 with your goalie partner at squirt or pee-wee. Not all the time, but some of the time. So you're used to it. Now you're mentally conditioned not to make it a big deal. Be like, I've
Okay.
done this 3 dozen times
Hmm.
from squirt
It's
to
not
pee-wee.
scary. I can
Not
handle it.
scary. Right. I have a routine. I know I prepare before every game, like I'm coming in because I am coming in. I'm either starting or I'm playing the second half. So now you're ready and you may get that opportunity to shine when the other guy, the starter, gets hurt and you have to come in halfway through the first or halfway through the second. And now you have confidence doing it. So again, it's not for everyone, but I rotated 50-50 when I was young and I liked it. It felt like I had skin in the game all the time. It keeps certain goalies from being a distraction on the bench, like just being a goofball or not preparing before the game or not going through your
Imagine a goalie being a goofball.
right. So yeah, so rotating and making sure that it's the communication is there from the coach. I hear a lot of coaches that don't tell their goalies like until warm-ups. Oh, we'll see who has a better warm-up. And they just like playing mental games with the goalies. And it's
Yeah,
just
that
really it's this
I
doesn't
wouldn't
help
be
it.
able to as a former goalie if I like my son doesn't play goal, but if he did and if he was playing competitively, if I found out that you choose your goalie day of and you don't tell them until they're getting their gear on,
Right.
so I'm just gonna I'll drop down a level if I have to not be on your team. I think that's
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. Like just going to the and it's bad enough. There's guys blasting, vulcanized rubber at you, but you got to try to figure out, oh my God, am I playing? Do I have what level of readiness do I need? Because this guy thinks he has all the keys to the,
Right.
to the secrets of the universe, and he's gonna use his strategy to pick goalies. That to me gets a little wild. So you're an advocate of say splitting even within the game.
Yes, at the youngest levels for sure,
Yeah.
and even at Pee Wee. So for this year, I coached the Pee Wee AA team here in Woodbury, which is the highest level of Pee Wees. I think we were like 42, 8-5 on the season, and we made it to the
So
state
not
tournament.
bad.
Yeah, good team, and I play the game at a high level, coached for a long time, and out of the 54 games we've played, I would say about a dozen of them have been full games
Okay.
and 40 of them have been half and half. And
Okay.
I told parents ahead of time, here's why we want to do this. Well, one, both goalies like were very equal
They're
coming
even
in.
anyway.
Yeah, they're even anyway. And they both, I want some of them, I want them getting the experience coming off the bench. And then now for the playoffs, we've gone to full games. And we've done, a dozen full games in there because both goalies came to me and said, hey, we prefer to play full games. And I said, hey, I don't blame you. But now at least you have 20 games, 30 games, 40 games where you came off the bench this year and you're confident in case, say, our starting goalie in the first game gets hurt. Now all of a sudden another guy has to come in but he's ready now. So it's not a new thing. So I would say 50-50 and mix in. Make sure you communicate it with the goalies and tell them the reason why you're doing it, not just because that's what we want to do. Use that example I gave to prepare them. And then, I would say rotate them and come in, and especially 50-50 like that at a squirt age like that. It's
Yeah.
just good. It makes them feel part of the win.
Let me ask you one other thing. Do I have it right that you were in the early days, you were a Minnesota Wild e-bug?
Yes, 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 for sure. 2013
Okay.
was when I actually suited up for the Anaheim Ducks, and I was a Minnesota E-Bug. And the year before, like 2011, 2012, when teams would come to town and say the starter didn't want to do the morning practice, I would get a call from whoever it was, Anaheim, Colorado.
Sure.
I maybe did it about a half dozen times. This was before it was even like there was like a system in place.
Yep.
And they would just call me because Ben Hankinson, who was my agent, quote unquote agent,
Yep.
just being a good guy for me when I was playing minor league hockey. He had these relationships, and a coach would call and be like, "Hey, we're coming in town. Jose Teodor said he doesn't want to practice tomorrow morning. Can you get Sikich?" I'm like, yeah. So I would go practice with these teams, a dozen times throughout the winter. And then it happened to be that Anaheim was in town in March of 2013. I remember it because Ilya, we call her Yaya, was taking a nap, and I was putting her down to take a nap, and I missed a call from an Anaheim number. And I text my wife, Jess. I'm like, hey, babe, is Anaheim in town tonight for some reason? I just missed a call. Check the Wild schedule. And she's like, yeah, they're in town. I'm like, oh boy. So I call David McNabb up, and I call him up. I'm like, hey, he's like, hey, Sikich. He's like, what are you up to? I'm like, I just put my daughter down for a nap. I missed your call. He's like, have you been skating much lately? I'm like, oh yeah, I skate, 4 or 5 times a week. I didn't tell him, not in my equipment. As a
Okay.
coach, I hadn't been in my gear for
So it
like,
wasn't a lie.
right. I hadn't been in my gear for like 8 months.
Okay.
Okay? I didn't even have my gear at my house. So he's like, hey, you skating much? I'm like, yeah, 4 or 5 times a week. I'm, really active. I'm on the ice a ton. He's like, great. He's like, so-and-so got a concussion at the morning skate. No, this is at like 1 in the afternoon,
Sure.
right? Guys are arriving at 5 at games.
You'd be having you'd be needing a nap right now.
Yeah, right.
Guys are
Exactly.
doing their pregame nap.
Right. Now my daughter's napping. I'm like, well, I'm just playing cool as a cucumber. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, hey, we're not sure yet if we can get our guy in from Fort Wayne because it's not easy to get to Fort Wayne to Minnesota. He's like, I'm not sure yet, but hey, give me an hour and we may need you to sit on the bench tonight for this game. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. So I'm like, hey, just give me a heads up. Either way, it's cool. Just like I don't have equipment. I have player skates and gloves and a stick that I use to coach. I have no goalie equipment at my house. And so I'm like, boom, I instantly call my buddy. And I'm like, dude, I need my equipment tonight. And I wouldn't tell him why. I'm like, yeah, I just need my equipment tonight. He's like, well, it's in my garage. He's like, my wife's at her workout class. And yeah, just drive over there and grab it. I'm like, okay. So I show up. I'm waiting for his wife to get back from her workout and open the garage up. There's my gear. Thank God it's all there. I go through it. And then now McNabb calls me. He's like, Sikich, we need you. He's like, where can I fax a contract to? I'm like, I Google FedEx Kinkos. There's a FedEx Kinkos in Maple Grove down the street. I'm like, well, I'm going to go to this Kinkos. I'm going to get the fax number. Call them back. Here's the fax number. Boom. They faxed me the contract at the FedEx Kinkos. It's like 2:45 in the afternoon now. I faxed the contract over, signed the contract, faxed it back. And then I put on my goalie gear. I drive down to the X, which is the XL Energy
Yep.
Center, go through the back, the player entrance, valet my car. They grab my gear, bring it to the locker room. And at that time, you were one of the boys. I'm like legitimately doing a dynamic warm up with Jonas Hiller.
Yeah.
All right. He and I are warming up together. He's a goalie gear nerd. Like he's got like the super cool knee pads and
Yep.
all this stuff. He's about to play an NHL game. And nowadays they put you up in the janitor's closet. You can't have any kind of contact with the team really until you're on the bench. I went through the whole pregame stretch, warm up. I'm eating oranges with the boys in the locker room, having the Gatorade, taking the pregame shower, like just everything. I'm one of the boys. And they
Yep.
were so cool. And so I do warm-ups, come back in, pregame chat, national anthem, about 7-8 minutes of the first period, I get a tap on the shoulder. Hey, Sikich, other guys here. So the guy, the real goalie, came in from Fort Wayne. So he
Okay.
took me off the bench. I leave. Um, and they gave me an envelope with $500 cash in it and the jersey.
Nice.
Unreal. I really don't publicize that very much because like I have
Sure.
such respect for the guys that earn it. Like I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
earn it from
Yeah.
so the e-bug must have became a thing in like what 2014,
It was around, it
2015.
was right after that Leafs Florida game where they thought, I
Yeah,
think it was like Derek McKenzie was going to put on Roberto Luongo's goalie gear or something like that. And
it was crazy there. There was a bunch of events. So then it was an official thing. So there was like three of us in Minnesota. And I did it from like 2015 to like 2018, maybe.
sure.
Like even up to COVID, I remember like um having to go through like this protocol. And I was like, it's not for me. I'll pass. And so I wasn't
Oh,
an ebook
38,
anymore.
39 years old at that point
Yeah, I'm
too.
38, 39, and at that time, like, it was fun going to the games, but like, it's not like I'm sitting with my wife and kids, and like, Henrik's 8, Yaya's 5, like, these evenings are a little more special for me to go gallivanting as an emergency backup in
Yeah.
my suit and tie, sit in the media. It was fun, but I would still do at 38. I think my last year I did like 5 or 6 games, and
Yeah.
that was it was fun. And then to send me off, like my last season, they were really cool, and they knew that my kids were huge Washington Capital fans and OV fans.
Okay.
So during the Capitals game, they gave me pretty much passes for my family. Like they go anywhere they wanted. Like
Mm,
you got like the pass that could go wherever you wanted. So they got to meet OV and a bunch of the guys after the game and to get pictures and do video
nice.
with them. It was pretty neat. And he was totally cool about it. I said, hey, dude, like I'm the emergency backup for the while he's like, oh, that's sweet. Like, they're just good guys. Like
Yeah.
NHL guys, the reputation's true. Like most of these guys are incredible guys, and they're
Yeah.
just like they like to be treated as average people. They don't want to be put on a pedestal. Like they like that.
Favorite building that you played in along the way. I know that sounds like there was quite a few of them.
Oh man, favorite building. I love the rink in Fort Wayne.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called, but it's just like it's huge. And
Yeah.
the rink in Fort Wayne was awesome. The rink in Bakersfield, actually, I'm gonna take it back. Bakersfield.
Okay.
Bakersfield rink was awesome. Yep.
Fort Wayne a close second then.
Yep.
Great coach who made a real impact on you that you still think about today.
Paul Gillis. Paul
Yeah.
Gillis gave me the opportunity to drive out to Danbury, Connecticut, and earn the spot on the team. And then the captain gave me the green light to punch the backup goalie's lights out. And it really kept me on the team. And then he referred me to the Quebec
To
Senior
the
League.
guys in Quebec,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
we've covered a lot of ground here. We've spent some time. It's great catching up with you. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to take part in one of the great tournaments we have in the city sometime, and then we'll get a chance to hook up and get together. Thanks very much, Zach, for joining me. This was amazing. I'm glad I finally got a chance to get you on to do this. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. Best wishes moving forward the podcast. We'll be in touch soon, brother.
All right, cool. So that's a
Yeah.
lot of teams.
Yeah. So we'll
What
walk
was
through
that
it
like?
super quick. It was nuts. So let's count them here. So so I went to the let's see, Air Force Academy, then St. Thomas. And then right after my senior year at St. Thomas, it was during the lockout.
Okay.
So this was '05, April
Yep.
of '05. And the Motor City Mechanics signed me to a contract right away.
Hmm.
And I had like 4 or 5 days to talk to my teachers, and I'd sort of been prepping them like, hey, if I have a good senior year, there's a chance I may get signed. And I really want to do this, but I want to make sure I take care of my classes and all that stuff. So it's, it goes to show you just like good communication, sitting in the front of class, showing up on time, having good attendance. It'll get you some leeway, with teachers and all this type of stuff. So I went to Motor City, and these guys were at Motor City: Chris Chelios,
Yes.
Darian Hatcher, and Sean Avery.
Hmm.
So Avery and Chelios on the same team, and
And
Smolinski Hatcher.
what league was that?
It's UHL,
That
United
that was
Hockey.
the U-Haul.
Yeah, U-Haul, baby. So those guys were incredible. Chris Chelios is as advertised. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the coolest guy. Like he understood the situation. Me and a buddy of mine played at Alabama Huntsville. He's a Minnesota guy. We both got signed there. We come in, we're just like green rookies that have no clue what's going on. And he's at the rink instantly. Like he doesn't have to introduce himself to us or anything. He comes up,
Yeah.
introduces himself, says he's got Shelly's Chili Bar down the road. We were in Fraser, Michigan. He's like, yeah, I got a Shelly's Chili Bar down the road. Let's go down there tonight. Meet me there at like 4:30. So me and my buddy meet Chelly at his bar at 4:30. First day. First day. All right. He's like, boys, here's the general manager, so and so. Here's all the servers. Here's all the bartenders, because they're doing like their pre-shift meeting.
Yep.
He introduces us. All right. And he's like, these boys eat for free as long as they're here. So we got to eat whatever we wanted, like, for the next month or so that we were in town. You know, I was already 25 years old, so I could have beers and some drinks if I needed to. And he was just the coolest guy, like the
Yeah.
nicest guy. Um, Avery was a prick, and he'd probably admit it right now. I
Okay.
mean, he would be the guy that like would get a fight and a misconduct like a minute and a half in the first period, so he didn't have to play the rest of the game. You know, wouldn't yeah, he was a prick. Hatcher was incredible. He had a bar in town too. He did the same thing. And
Yeah.
Smolinski sort of kept to himself. Really nice guy, but it wasn't really outgoing. But I got a picture of my first pro start, and it's me on a 5-on-3 penalty because I think uh, Avery probably got a
He's
five.
probably responsible.
He was in the box, and so it was me like in my St. Thomas goalie gear. My I think there were 590s by that time, and Smolinski is like on the top of the PK, and then Hatcher and Chelios are killing, and it's me looking over a screen on a 5-on-3, and they all signed it. So that was pretty fun. So did that and came back. But anyways, that next year was my first year of pro hockey, like my first full year.
Yeah.
Went to Kalamazoo,
Okay.
U-Haul, and it came down between two guys, me and another rookie, Joel Martin. I don't know if you recognize that name. He played in the league for like 18, 19 years. He's like a big time hockey development guy. He does a lot of the coaches' site talks now. So it was me and him that were battling for the last spot.
Nice.
I got cut. He became, pretty much the mayor of Kalamazoo after
Right. Yeah.
tenure there. So, oh man. So Kalamazoo came back, convinced my fiance at the time, Jessica, who's my wife right now, to sell all of our stuff, which wasn't much, but we got about $800 for a couch and stuff. We drive to Danbury, Connecticut. So I'm in Danbury
Yeah.
when this whole Danbury
The
Trashers thing was
Trashers.
going down. Call Paul Gillis, and I go, Coach Gillis, hey, I was your emergency backup in the playoffs at Quad City, because I went to Quad City after Motor City the year before to be like their emergency backup. I said,
Yep.
hey,
Former NHLer
oh,
Paul
yeah,
Gillis.
what's up?
Former NHLer Paul
Yeah,
Gillis.
oh
Yeah.
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 Yeah, former NHLer, Stanley Cup winner, Quebec
Yeah.
Nordiques. So I'm like, Gilly, it's Sicky here. Hey, I got cut from Kalamazoo, and I didn't have an agent. Obviously, we're playing the U-Haul. Like some
Yeah.
guys do, but I certainly didn't. I'm like, Gilly, here's the story, man. I just got cut from Kalamazoo. I got a proposition for you. I said, I will drive from Minnesota to Danbury, Connecticut on my own dollar. Give me 2 weeks and at least one game in the course of 2 weeks. Just play me one game. I'll practice every day, whatever you want. If I make the team, I appreciate if you can, repay my expenses to get out there and pay me my salary and sign me. If you want to cut me for whatever reason after these 2 weeks, don't owe me anything. Don't just get me up in a place to stay, and that's all I need. And he's like, done. Boom.
Okay.
My fiance and I and my dog, Sammy, his little Jack Russell Beagle, drive out to Danbury, Connecticut. And they put us up in a hotel for a couple days. Um, the guy that was on loan from the AHL was sort of a prick to me, and so I had to go ask the captain's permission during a practice. I said, "Hey, this guy's not letting me in the net, and I'm trying to be cool." And he's like, "Yeah, F him," because no one really liked him, I guess, for whatever reason. So I asked the
Sure.
captain's permission. I said, "Hey, I'd like your permission to beat the shit out of this guy in practice." And he's like, "Yeah, go for it." So, again, I'm playing for my life here, pretty much,
Sure.
So I go, "Hey, man, like, you're not letting me in the net," and I go, "Hey, after if you don't let me in the net after the drill's done, I'm not going to jump you, but after the drill's done, we're going to fight." And he's like, whatever. It doesn't even. So I said, "All right, here we go." So I just grabbed him and gave it to him, like pumped him. All the guys are tapping their sticks. So then I got to be the second guy. I played a game.
I mean,
Played
talk about announcing your presence with authority, you know?
Yeah, this is real life, man. Uh, beat the wheels off this guy in practice. I play well. I'm there for like 3 weeks, and then a guy named Kevin St. Pierre is out of the lineup. He's their starting goal. He's a U-Haul legend. He's out of the lineup with vertigo. So he gets back. All right, he gets back, and oh, excuse me. I'm getting this confused. We're in Danbury. Anyways, a guy gets called down from the NHL affiliation. So I'm put on waivers. I get picked up in Fort Wayne. So now we're on our third team. We go Fort Wayne. Now I'm there for like 3 weeks. Kevin St. Pierre gets sent down or gets put back on the team because he's recovered from his vertigo. I get a call from Paul Gillis's buddy, who coaches in the Quebec Senior League.
Oh yeah.
I get a call from him in this heavy French Canadian accent. He goes, "I hear you're a good rookie goalie. You're big, good goalie, but also like to fight."
Oh,
So I'm like, "Yeah, well, I had to." I said, "I don't make a habit of it, but I sort of had to." So he's like, "Hey, you come up here. We pay you twice what you're making now, all cash. Just get up." So we go to St. George de Beauce for the CRS Express, play up there for about 3 months. It's dangerous. I have no health care, right? I'm not a Canadian
right.
citizen.
Right.
No health care. I'm playing in the most dangerous league. I'm living in like a haunted mansion on the side of the road. They finally upgraded me to a nice townhome. I'm playing all the games. Anyways, I get a call from a buddy of mine who's an agent. Ben Hankinson runs Octagon Hockey right now. He goes, "Sicky, we got to get you the hell out of Quebec. The Dayton Bombers need a
Yeah.
goalie, but you have to be here by noon tomorrow." All right. It's like 4 in the
Go
afternoon.
back to Dayton.
Yeah. Google map that. So we buzz overnight. My fiance drops me off at the bus at the rink. I jump on a bus from Dayton, Ohio to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, sit on the bench. There was no e-bugs back there. Sit on the bench, spend a week in Dayton, get sent down to Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
The Barracudas in the single A level SPHL. Okay. Spent about 4 weeks there. Get called up to Long Beach Ice Dogs with Danton Cole, who ended up being the USA Team USA coach. Spend 2 weeks in Long Beach.
And that's
Now,
the coast.
yep, East Coast
Okay.
League.
Yeah.
Now, follow along here, Dana. This is a lot of geography.
I'm
Jose
almost out of
Theodore.
fingers.
Right. Yeah, for sure. We're close. Jose Theodore is getting run through the tabloids in Montreal at
Mm-hmm.
this time. Okay. For the whole Paris Hilton thing, and
Yeah, all kinds of
this,
stuff.
all kinds of stuff. And so now Long Beach is the affiliate, this AA affiliate of Montreal. So it goes Montreal, Hamilton, Long Beach. Okay.
Yep.
And so Tador gets traded to the Colorado Avalanche
Yep.
for David Abisher
Hmm.
and other people. Abisher's healthy, Tador's injured. So now Abisher goes from the Avalanche to Montreal, which pushes a guy down to Hamilton, which pushes a guy down to Long Beach. So now I'm the odd man out in Long Beach. And I get traded at the deadline to the Phoenix Roadrunners,
Hmm.
final of the year. So I'm at Phoenix. It's a great setup. We're living downtown. We're playing in the Suns rink. You can walk to practice. Great setup, but they sold all their best players. So they at the deadline they're sellers at the
Okay.
deadline, and all their best players go. And anyways, I finished my rookie season in Phoenix, and it was a tough goal, but I got to play a lot. Played for a handful of teams my second year of pro, and then my final year of pro, I played in Beijing, China, in the Asian Pro Hockey League. So